Huge sale in our Unita Candle store today at 5 p.m. As you can see, we've got all kinds of great Christmas classics, both Jack Frost, Ginger Dead Men, Jelly of the Month candles, Hot Cocoa Gremlins, you name it. Silent Night, Deadly Night, Christmas Evil, 5 p.m. Central Time today. Netflix to buy Warner Brothers and HBO Max for $82.7 billion. That is just an insane number to even think of. I thought Netflix was like always in debt. Don't they overspend, underdeliver all the time? What do I know? Anyway, guys, we're going to talk about this today because this is some of the most insane news I've ever heard. Yeah, it's official in a move that will drastically reshape the entertainment business. Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery announced an agreement Friday which under Netflix will acquire Warner Brothers, including its film and TV studios, its gaming business, HBO Max, and HBO. This is sending shockwaves to everybody. There's so much stuff to speculate and talk about, and even the fact that this could not even legally happen, but we'll get into that in just a minute. Here's some quotes that we have from personnel at Netflix. I know some of you are surprised we are making this acquisition, Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos said, and a call with analysts Friday noting the company's historically has been more builders than buyers. Netflix expects to maintain Warner Brothers' current operations and build on its strengths, including theatrical releases for film. Currently, Warner Brothers has a deal to release its films in cinemas through 2029. In near term, Netflix signaled it would keep HBO Max as a discrete service, which also touted the addition of HBO and HBO Max content to its line. Essentially, I'll tell you this right now. HBO Max will not be forever. I had some wrestling fans ask what's happening. I'm sure AEW will end up on Netflix. I've yet to see anybody be happy about this, and there's a lot of reasons why. First of all, the things that Netflix will now own is concerning. Now, there's a lot of horror fans speculating, oh, well, they own A Nightmare on Elm Street now, which I'm not going to argue that because obviously I don't have the facts, but I have talked to a few people that said the real issues with Elm Street is really, what happened with Friday the 13th. After so many years, the intellectual property of that first script went back to Victor Miller. I'm 99% sure that, while Warner Brothers has the distribution of the films that have already been made, and what they do with them, how they put them out on streaming services, the home video release, the family had nothing to do with that. In terms of anything new, that's still a legal battle with the family, the Craven estate, which is just a weird way to say family. I don't know why people call it that, but everybody does. The family, the kids, they have the rights to the script, and there's a lot of legal issues with that going on. Friday the 13th, supposedly, I think New Line Cinema owns everything Friday the 13th now at this point. Paramount, again, just has their 8 films, which those are safe. And there's a lot of other stuff. And a lot of people are like, what does this mean? Let me just tell you guys something how I feel about Netflix. Now, this is just my opinion, but let's just say this. Are they going to actually continue to have Warner Brothers properties and stuff go to the theaters? I think so. But I read a quote somewhere else from some Netflix personnel was something to the effect of, we have no problem with theatrical. The only thing is we feel like the long window between theatrical and streaming is too long and it's cumbersome for viewers. Literally, nobody is saying that. The opposite is being said. People are sick and tired of movies showing up in a theater for a week and then streaming. You would think that these movie theaters would all get together and say, when are we going to stand up for ourselves? We have got to protect our business. Movie theaters are not necessarily in a bad place. I think there's a conception that movie theaters are tanking. I don't think they are. I think they've pivoted and they've learned how to make going to the theater more exciting. Whether you call it consumerism or not, with all the popcorn buckets and things like this, it's a way to get people to go to the theater. And listen, I have a lot of those popcorn buckets because quite frankly, they're fun. And the only way you can do stuff like that is going to the theater. A lot of Warner Brothers titles, I think they're going to come to the theaters within the next a year and change, for days, literal days. And then the market for that is going to be drastically different. I don't care what they say now. They're going to say stuff that's going to try to get them better press right now. But the fact is, nobody seems to be happy about this. This is going to probably change so much stuff. And I don't see what the real net benefit is of this. Now, there's a whole nother thing going on that means that this couldn't happen. Netflix faces a potential hurdle in clearing the WB deal over antitrust lost issues, a point that Ellison's Paramount Skydance emphasized in its communications with WBD board in its last bid. Representative Darrell Issa raised a concern in a November 13th letter to Trump administration officials, writing, "With more than 300 million global subscribers and a vast content library, Netflix currently wields unequaled market power." So that's something that still could happen. We don't know. But basically, I think what this means is this is trying to avoid monopolies, which, listen, I'm not getting political or anything like that, but part of me does say, yeah, but I also feel hypocritical if this was sold to anybody else at a certain aspect too, because I don't think Paramount is exactly a small company. My thing is this: why sell WB? I don't understand it. Are you guys like, how much money is enough for these gigantic corporations? With Netflix, it's just like, you know, you guys were a challenger brand for so many years, and your whole base was being different, being a streaming service, offering an alternative to home video releases that you buy at the Blockbuster or video store, and you could just stream them right from your home. Now you guys are basically trying to become the next big movie studio, except you're going to do it in a way that kills off the way people go to see movies. You really believe for a second that Netflix is really going to honor doing theater runs for every movie? Here's the most important thing I want to talk to you guys about. Now, I can't prove this, but I have read deep dives about Netflix films. When's the last time you've actually seen a legitimately great Netflix film? I mean legitimately great. I remember in Horror World, one of the bigger Netflix movies that people were freaking out about was a movie called Bird Box. Remember that with Sandra Bullock? Stop and think to yourself for a second. Was that movie great? No, it was fine. It was okay. It wasn't great. Here's the thing about Netflix films that I really want to drive home to you guys. Do you really think that they are interested in making legitimately great films? Now, don't get me wrong, there are exceptions to the rule where they get Martin Scorsese and Guillermo del Toro to do Netflix movies, and those guys thankfully have enough power that they will get theater runs for their movies as well as home video releases. Criterion seems to have a decent relationship with Netflix, but my point is this: Netflix is aware that people like you and me, when we watch movies at the house from Netflix, especially if they're Netflix films, we got one thing in our hand the whole time. This. And we scroll and we look around at stuff while those movies are playing. They know that. They're not trying to make the best movies possible. They're trying to make movies that throw on your TV while you're at the house, being distracted by your phone, social media, family. That's the kind of movies they make. That doesn't mean that everything is bad. There are exceptions to the rule. Like I said, shows like Mindhunter were masterpieces. And then, of course, they cancel stuff like that. Now, Stranger Things is fine. I have no problem with Stranger Things, but listen, it's about to be old news. It's ending. I just don't see this being a good fit whatsoever. Netflix is my alternative. They are not the way I want to experience movies going forward, especially in a permanent way. I mean, imagine having to watch every movie just at your house going forward. This is a time for companies like Neon, A24, and others to step up. Pick up where WB is going to leave off. We need more competition. Instead of a monopoly happening with Netflix and Warner Brothers, we need more movie studios to come in. We need to open the playing field. Movie theaters like AMC, Regal, and Cinemark have done a great job allowing companies like Shudder to come in with their movies. Late Night with the Devil, In a Violent Nature. These are movies that can compete with the bigger movies. The Terrifier series, I'm not going to say anything bad about it because I love the fact that this movie can come out and stomp shit like Netflix would put out in the movie theater. Try to compete with that, Netflix. Unless you guys plan to drastically change the way you do things, you are going to be looked at as an enemy. And greedy, quite frankly. If I had to have somebody else buy the company, like I said, I would have rather any other entity appreciates making real movies at the movie theater. But this is just a shit move, and you'll not convince me otherwise. So what this does to properties that Netflix will now own, I have zero really high hopes for in any regard. People were like, oh, well, Netflix has Gremlins. They have this, they have this. That's another thing. There's a Gremlins movie supposedly in the works. What's going to happen to that now? Straight to Netflix? This is going to take away a social aspect of life that has been so fun for so many big properties that we've come to know and love of seeing in the theater. I saw a movie called Weapons earlier this year with a buddy, and the experience we had with a group of people in the movie theater, because we were actually genuinely creeped out by the film, was amazing. We were looking at each other like, holy shit, this is great. Now we're going to text each other about movies like that. When it comes to physical media, that's not really my big concern, although I do wonder what's going to happen with Arrow and Warner Brothers. I will reach out to Cliff to get some comment on that if I can. But Overall, I think physical media itself will be fine, and movie theaters will survive, but the problem is this could drastically change properties that we know and love seeing in the theater. Netflix, just because you can, doesn't mean you should. Maybe you should work more on making better movies. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.